All right, let's talk about the financial order of operations. This is something I kind of created for myself to help break it down into steps and priorities on my journey to financial freedom. Um, I don't know if y'all have heard about like PEMDAS in mathematics class in like high school, but it's basically like the same shit, but for finances. And the first step is to have a 6-month emergency fund. Now, a lot of people kind of get this step confused with what their monthly budget should be for their 6-month emergency fund. And it should be what your bare minimum currently is to live on a monthly basis. So let's say you're paying $1,000 in rent a month, and you're paying $600 in groceries, food, gas, car insurance, everything else. So your total expenses is $1,600. $1,600 times 6, that's going to be your 6-month emergency fund. And that's going to be more than enough to get you out of a pickle if you lose your job or whatever, because realistically, if that's what you're currently living on, in an emergency you could probably live off at least a little bit less than what you're currently living on. That's kind of my logic behind it. So for me personally, I'm still living at home with my parents, and I don't have to pay rent. Thankfully, I don't have a car payment, I don't have any debt, so my monthly expenses is $500. Everything can fit within $500. So my 6-month emergency fund would only have to be $3,500, but I like to keep $6,000 in there, just in case. But the first step is to get a 6-month emergency fund and put that money all into a high yield savings account. That way it's working for you. You're at least getting 3 to 4% interest, as opposed to basically zero, which is what you would get in like a normal savings account. Bam. So after step 1, the next step is to contribute towards your company retirement plan, whether that's a traditional 401k, 457b Roth, which is what I have with my job. The point is, at least contribute some of your paycheck towards that company retirement. I know a lot of companies offer a traditional Roth IRA and they match up to a certain percent. So let's say your company matches 2%. At the bare minimum, you want to put in that 2% because you're getting a free 2%. Like, why would you miss out on, if your company's going to contribute some free money, you might as well take advantage of that. So the next step is to contribute towards your company retirement. If you don't have company retirement, just skip this step and move on to the next step, which is to open up a Roth IRA and max that out every single year. So I personally like to use Vanguard. You can use different companies like Fidelity or I think Charles Schwab. But the point is to open up a Roth IRA and max it out every single year. You should be able to contribute $7,000 a year if you're under like the age of 55 or something. So hit that $7,000 every single year. I know it's going to be tough. $7,000 a year is a lot of money for some people, and it's not necessarily easy to give up that much money into something that you're not going to see until you're 65, and I get that. But if you just consistently max out your Roth IRA in itself, and you get an average return rate of 7 to 10%, which is what the S&P 500 yields statistically, then from the age of like 20, if you continue to max it out to the age of 65, you're going to have well over $1 million in there. And something else people don't understand with like mutual funds like VU, which track the S&P 500, is they also pay you a dividend yield. And while it's not that high, I think it's like 1.5%. It's definitely not insignificant. Like if you have over $2 million in there, you're still going to be making a decent amount quarterly just off the dividend yield in itself. And especially if you automatically reinvest those dividends, it's going to compound and grow even quicker. So think about it. You're putting $7,000 a year into your Roth, plus you're reinvesting all the dividends, and you're not touching it until you're 65. That money's going to compound. You're going to definitely see the benefits of compound interest, and by the time you retire, you'll have a good stack of money that you can rely on. So that's the third step, is to max out your Roth IRA. After you've maxed out your Roth IRA, it gets a little bit tricky because it depends kind of on your goals in life. So let's say you're still living in a cheap place where you're still living with your parents after you've already reached this step. Then what I would recommend is working towards maxing out your company retirement, which for me personally, like I said, it's a Roth 457b. It basically has the same tax advantages as my Roth IRA. It's basically just another Roth IRA. So I think the max I can put towards that is like $24,000, which obviously I can't do right now. I don't make enough to put $24,000 into my 457 Roth. But if you've already completed all these steps and you're still living at home, then you can consider trying to max out your company retirement, which is not a bad option at all. That will just get you to your financial goal even quicker, honestly. But what you could also do is, if you have a big expense coming up, or you plan on moving in with your girlfriend soon, or buying a house, or starting a family, or anything, you should start planning and saving for those big future expenses that could require a lot of cash. You know, if you have a really shitty car and you know you're gonna have to get a new one soon because your wife's about to have a kid, you need a good, safe, brand new car for the family, then start saving up for that. You know, you can save up the cash for that so you don't have to finance your car and lose a bunch of money in interest. You could save up for these type of expenses and, you know, really set yourself apart and have an advantage instead of having to finance and, you know, go into debt to buy things. So that's what I would recommend. Like me personally, the steps I've done is I already have a 6-month emergency fund. I'm already contributing towards my company match. Plus, I'm contributing a little bit additional every single paycheck towards my company retirement. And now my next goal is basically to just save up cash in a separate high yield savings account for my emergency fund, and really save that up because I'm planning on moving into an apartment with my girlfriend either at the end of this year or maybe next summer. So that's an expense that I know I'm going to have. I might as well save up cash for it, just in case something goes wrong where I lose my job. I'll still have that cash to rely on to pay for those future intended expenses. But yeah, guys, and once you get past that step, honestly, like, there's not much else you can do. If you're already done all those steps, you could just open up a brokerage account and invest even more. That's probably what I would recommend, honestly. If you've done all those steps, which is super impressive, then at that point, you might as well just open up a brokerage account and continue to invest more money. You can look into, you know, bigger investments, like appreciating assets such as maybe commercial, residential real estate. You could start considering those options if you're at that point. But it's super important throughout this whole journey to just stay consistent, keep your head down. You know, you're going to be tempted to do a lot of different things, and I know it hurts seeing a big portion of your paychecks all go away and it seems like it's disappearing into nothing. A lot of people, you know, want that money now instead of later, but what they don't understand is that money is working for you in the background 24/7, you know? It's always working for you. It's like a full-time employee that's always on the clock, always working. And time in the market is always going to be trying to time the market. You got to just trust in the process, trust in the fundamentals, and trust in the, you know, statistics, and just continue to invest. You know, a lot of people think investing is risky, but what I like to do is I like to just spam VOO, which is a ticker symbol, and that's basically just the S&P 500. Like I mentioned earlier, average is 7 to 10% a year. It's super safe, very diversified, because it's the top 500 US companies in the world. And yeah, I mean, I virtually see like little to no risk with that. Of course, there is some risk if there's like, you know, the economy fails or something, but I'm willing to bet that it's not going to, and whatever short-term, you know, negatives happen to the economy, we'll be able to rebound from that in the grand scheme of things. And from now until 65, I'm not really worried that anything is going to permanently like destroy the S&P 500. So I'm placing my money on VOO. A lot of other people are too. It's known to be a very safe, boring, but reliable and predictable mutual fund, that's why it's good. I mean, that's why everybody loves it. So I highly recommend just spamming VOO, keeping it simple. You don't have to try to find all these different blue chip stocks and all these different mutual funds and ETFs and bonds. Just keep going with VOO, trust in the process, and the gains are going to be crazy in the future.